According to legend, the first to tell the world about a mysterious creature in a distant Scottish lake were Roman legionnaires, who, with a sword in their hands, mastered the Celtic expanses at the dawn of the Christian era. Local residents immortalized in stone all representatives of the Scottish fauna, from deer to mice. The only stone statue that the Romans could not identify was a strange image of a gigantic long-necked seal. The first written mention of a mysterious creature that lives in the waters of Loch Ness dates back to the 6th century AD. In the biography of Saint Columba, written 100 years after the events, Adamnan, abbot of the Ayen monastery in Scotland, tells of the saint's triumph over the water beast in the River Ness. Columba's abbot was then busy converting pagan Picts and Scots at his new monastery off the west coast of Scotland. So, Columba baptized the Pictish king Bruda I around 565 AD. Brode's capital, Inverness, is located near Loch Ness. According to the Life, once Columba went to Loch Ness and saw that the locals were burying one of their people, he was crippled and killed when he swam in the lake. He was killed by Nisag, the Celtic name for the monster. Local residents, armed with hooks to drive away the monster, dragged the body of the deceased to the shore. One of the saint's disciples frivolously threw himself into the water and swam across the narrow strait to bring the boat. When he sailed from the shore, a strange-looking beast rose from the water, like a giant frog, only it was not a frog. Columba drove the monster away with a prayer. In another version of the legend, which, however, did not mention the details of the appearance of the monster, calling it simply a gigantic beast, the saint turned him into a tree. The Celtic legend about the water spirit Kelpie, which migrated to medieval folklore, was mentioned during the first peak of monster sightings in 1933 to 1934, describes the water spirit of the lake as a horse with a long neck and a very small head. Seeing a random traveler, Kelpie lured him, substituting his shiny back, as if offering to take him, and dragged the gullible person underwater. The first documented sightings of creatures on the lake date back to the construction of General Wade's old military road on the south shore, 18th century, then blasting near Foyers frightened off two huge dormant monsters. Throughout the 19th century, reports came in describing gigantic salamanders. In general, the monster seemed to calm down for a long time, but suddenly in 1880, with complete calm and clear skies, a small sailboat turned over on the lake and went to the bottom along with people. They immediately remembered the monster, since there were people who saw it. Thus began the legend of the Loch Ness monster. In 1932, a certain Miss MacDonald claimed to have seen a creature making its way across the shallows to the lake. This message did not arouse much interest, although later researchers paid attention to it, since an eyewitness claimed that the creature resembled a crocodile with a short head. In the spring of 1933, the Inverness Courier newspaper first published a detailed account of the sighting of an unknown creature in the lake by the Mackay couple, brought by a local resident, Inspector of the Water and Forestry Administration Alex Campbell, who subsequently testified to his own repeated sightings of the creature and claimed in a BBC television interview that he swam on a boat. The lake, along with Constable John Fraser, literally collided with an unknown creature and heard its breathing. In March, the Mackays were returning from Inverness along the north shore of the lake, when suddenly Mrs. Mackay saw a huge dark body, now rising then disappearing into the water. When the fright passed, she saw two black humps dissecting the surface of the lake. Suddenly they disappeared with a violent splash in depth. The article with the Mackays' testimony caused a sensation, and caused a real pilgrimage of the curious to the lake. In the summer of the same year, the northern shore of Loch Ness was significantly landscaped. Then the new road A80 to Inverness Fort Augustus was asphalted, cut down and thinned out with windfall and shrubs that grew on the edge of the coast. The unexpected reader response that the message about the monster caused was largely due to the fact that readers were tired of the sad economic and political news. A flood of new messages arrived in May of that year. Mr. Alexander Shaw and his son were standing on the lawn of Whitefield House when they saw circles in the water at a distance of 500 yards, making out what looked like the back of an animal. Both eyewitnesses said that they saw something long and wriggling, after which the water shot up, scattering splashes, as if a huge tail hit it. Then the gigantic creature was noticed by the Clement family of Temple Pier near Drumnadrochit, on the northern shore of the lake near Yorkout Castle. Thomas Clement related that the animal was 40 feet long, with 4 fins and a tapering long neck with small tubercles. On May 28, the creature reappeared, this time on Isle of Cherry Island. Nora Simpson observed him from a distance of about 45 feet for 10 minutes, then the animal went underwater. The description given by Simpson matched that of the Clements. On July 22, 1933, a new sighting occurred, this time on the shore. London businessman George Spicer and his wife were driving along the old military road of General Wade to Foyers, when suddenly they saw 200 yards ahead of a 30-foot animal crawling out of the undergrowth into side of the coast and blocked the road with his body. Spicer himself described the creature he saw as a disgusting scarecrow with a long neck. Contrary to the assurances of experts that what they saw could be a mirage that distorted an ordinary otter or horse, the Spicers resolutely refused to admit that they saw something like that. On November 12, 1933, a certain Hugh Gray from the hills near Foyers took the first known photograph of the monster, an extremely low-quality blurred image of a certain S-shaped figure. Gray confirmed the information about the appearance of the creature, and experts from Kodak, after checking the negatives, said they were genuine. Scientists, however, met the image with extreme skepticism. Professor Graham Kerry from the University of Glasgow said that the photo does not prove whether this creature is alive. Another expert, zoologist J.R., some of the sharks or even the wreckage of the ship. On December 12, a group of chroniclers from a Scottish film studio managed to film the animal moving through the shallow water near Inverferrigig. A little earlier, on December 6, a photo of Gray appeared on the front page of the Daily Sketch newspaper. In response, Sketch's rival Daily Mail sent, at its own expense, a member of the Royal Geographical and Zoological Societies posing as big game hunter Marmaduke Montague Wethall to hunt down the beast. Wethall and his photographer Gustave Pauly searched the shores of the lake and on December 18, 1933, found a series of strange footprints on the south shore near the village of Dawes. At the risk of his reputation, Wethall believed in their authenticity. The secret imprint of the footprint was sent to London for examination at the Natural History Museum. In the winter of 1934, largely under the influence of newspaper reports from the Daily Mail, which ignited passions around the phenomenon, the question of the existence of Nessie was proposed by journalists to be put on the agenda of Parliament, a proposal to allocate subsidies for research work, and possibly even the capture of an animal, but this idea was rejected. On closer examination, the mysterious footprints found by Wethall turned out to be the footprints of a stuffed hippo, which was usually used as an umbrella stand. A growing number of scientists began to say that there is no evidence of the existence of the Loch Ness monster, too. However, Wethall, without losing his presence of mind, arrived in London, claiming that he was simply played. In August 1934, Richard Singh was vacationing with his family at Fort Augustus on the western end of the lake when, in calm, clear weather, he saw a black mound protruding from the water, about 3 feet long, rising a foot above the water, after which the object began to move away in the northern direction. According to the scientist, they tried to catch up with the creature, following the shore in a car for almost 2 miles, measuring that it was moving at a speed of 15 miles per hour. In an interview with the BBC film crew, Singh noted that the locals who were met on the road bridge and to whom they showed this thing reacted to what they saw as something ordinary. During the war, strange phenomenon on the lake faded into the background, although air defense observers recorded dark figures on the lake. The flood of messages and photographs rekindled public interest in the mystery of the lake in the 1950s. In July 1955, Ayrshire banker Peter McNab photographed what appeared to be a huge, oblong, dark creature in the bay at Yorkout Castle, cutting through the surface of the lake. In 1957, Mrs. Constance White, who lived for many years on the shore of the lake, published the book It's More Than a Legend, which collected 117 stories of eyewitnesses who allegedly saw Nessie. The book wrote that in all the stories the appearance of the animal was described in approximately the same way: a thick massive body, a long neck, a small head.